Here is a simple looping animation, looking down it's going to be looking down a corridor here, after a bunch of adventuring. And I want to try out this new tool, um, with the simulated hair that I use. So I'll just quickly get the character finalized here. We got a nice loop going on. Now, normally, for a shot like this, I would actually run the animation the length that I need the video to be and then simulate the hair, for that whole duration. But now that we've got this dForce Arc Mage, let's see what else we can do and play with some of these tools. Now, I'd also like to point out that there's a lot more to this awesome utility than what I'm showing here. So let's just load in Rosie's hair and make sure that the attire is not going to be colliding because I don't need it to. If I need it to, then I will. And now in Matthew's spot down here in scripts, I just selected everything here and I right clicked and I went create custom action. And then I created this path myself. I left the and sign there and then just typed in Matthew there. And so now I'm not going to hit accept on this because I already did it. But right up here, I have all of these tools right at my fingertips. Okay, so here I've got my 30 frame buffer zone, that I use to let the simulated hair settle a bit. And if you'll notice, I've got uh, my own very close to default, but it's set up the way I use it most of the time, right here in my base Rosie scene, my Rosie base scene. And now when I run Archmage, it has all of my settings loaded. So that's nice. I wasn't sure if it was just going to start with some default value and we'd have to change things from there. But no, it picks up exactly what's there when you launch it, which is really cool. I like that. Another thing that I like is the fact that everything that's in the simulated scene is right here at our fingertips. You see, I overlooked the fact that a couple of things that shouldn't be recognized in the simulation were being simulated against. And so I've been doing that. It's probably been adding quite a bit of time to my simulations with that hair cap. You know, maybe not. I don't know. But now with this bone being green, that means that the entire figure can be collided against. Okay, so now if I click this, I can, right now I'm selecting, all I can see in this panel on the right here is parts of the hand. And so I can unselect all, and all it'll do are all of the pieces of the hand. And do it the same thing over here on the with the left hand. Incredibly convenient. It's just, I mean, it's not that it's difficult to do outside of this interface, but this makes it just a pleasure to. It's just, it's faster. It's faster. It's more fun. Now, I don't want to get rid of the whole leg, but I really don't need to collide against the shins. So we've got the hands, the shins, and the feet hidden. And now, if you like, you can come in and, okay, we don't need the upper teeth. We don't need the lower teeth. We don't need the tongue. And you could, if you want, you can get in here and get really specific with what all gets collided against. I'm not going to go through all of this here, but I just wanted to show you that, and then you can set that up He's got a really nice manual and tutorial video that shows you how you can set up the master controls for its default behavior, so that your figure's always ready with your settings. Okay, and these are the collision cones that I've got in here. Oh, and speaking of which, one of them needs to be adjusted before I run that. So if I control click this, um, it'll save all of those settings, but it won't actually launch the simulation. So I need to um, select this arm, and then I can come over here and find this null, and let's make the cone visible. And what I don't like is how it's been um, making a visible bulge above the shoulder. So that's easily corrected by just rotating the null in the X rotation just a little bit where it pushes the hair back. And we got that taken care of. We want to make sure that the simulation is active, but you can't see it in the render or in the viewport. And I also like to make sure that it's not selectable in the viewport too. Okay, yeah, and I just got a few little collision helpers in there that I use just to keep the hair from getting stuck in front of her face and stuff like that. Okay, so let's go back into this and see now the interface is a little bit too big for my screen. So I have to, it's kind of hard to find this. Once I get those little arrows showing, I just have to click it. It doesn't, you can't actually change the size of it. But once I do that, then I can see the top of the interface, and it's okay that the bottom doesn't run. Now we're just going to run the simulation, and it actually takes. Oh, I cancel it here because um, what I really want to do is I want to copy the very initial pose to 10, and then I make sure that I toggle that the interpolation there, or I might crash Daz Studio or get it to be hung forever. But I do that so that I have less hair swing in the first frame of the animation. Okay, so now um, I'm going to actually give it. I'm not going to give it any initialization time. We're just going to run it, and once it gets down to frame 10 here, it can just start settling from there. And now this is 10 times faster. It takes 10 times longer than this to actually simulate, which is still zipping right along. If we look up in the upper right, we're looking at 3.5 minutes, pushing on to 4 minutes, and that's actually cruising along. I mean, um, this is a short animation, but that's still fast. Granted, the RTX makes a big difference, but uh, yeah, yeah. I definitely noticed a speed increase by using this. And so now what we can do with Arc Mage, dForce Arc Mage, is we can make our simulations loop. And there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, you can copy the simulation status from one frame to another frame. It's really, there's a lot of really nice tools in here, and I'll get more into depth in other videos. But for this one, I just wanted to show how nice we can make a looping animation like this. And right when it gets from frame 89 and then zips back around to, you see that where the hair does that jump. And what I'm doing here is I'm keeping an eye out for whether I want to blend the first frame with the last frame, or whether I want to blend the last frame with the first frame, or whether I want to blend both of them, um, using It would basically cross the first and the last frames together. It's actually quite sophisticated how it works, and it's really neat how the difference. So I am going to bring the first frame to the last frame. So that makes last frame equals first frame, and I've determined that 20 frames will be my graduation. Oh my goodness. And I had Rosie selected instead of the hair. So that's why all of a sudden the pose changed. Yeah. You select your character when you're actually doing the simulation and running the main program. But when you're using these things, you have to select the hair. So I'll just come in here and he's got this nice remove morphs. Boom. I just got rid of those morphs that were just added, but I've still got this problem with this. Well, luckily it's only on that one frame, and I just got done copying and pasting it on frame 10. So all I really have to do is drag this over here, copy frame 10, and paste it onto 30, and we should. I'm gonna um, you got to flick those interpolation fixed. It's all fixed. That's very good. Okay, so now we'll just set this back to 30. Now let's do the same thing again, but this time with the hair selected. Okay, let's close some of this down a bit. Okay, so we'll come up here to Matthew and dForce Loop Master. Okay, now we want the last frame equals the first frame, and we want this just to 20. And you can actually set your own defaults for these too. It's really nicely set up, and uh, it takes a little while. Just let it do its thing. I mean, it's actually quite a bit of work that it's doing, copying, creating OBJs of the geometry shape at a specific frame, and then running it through Morphloader Pro, and then applying. It's doing some work in there, and now you notice we have a nice seamless uh, animation, because the last frame and the first frame are equal to one another. They There's no longer that jump in there. And so that's exactly where I wanted to be for this, and then do my looping with the render, and I just render this stuff out. However, if we wanted to do something different and actually make the animation longer, we can use this dForce animator. And uh, okay, because of the fact that I used the looper, I'm setting these intervals, and you don't have to do that, but because of the odd number of frames that I have in here, I was just nervous that I would be presenting this thing and that um, I would miss the keyframe where the looping transition was taking place. So I just made a morph for every frame, which is a bit extensive. You don't really need that, but this takes a lot longer than what is showing here. I sped this up just as much as I did for simulating the hair, and there again, we've already seen it run through the timeline once. That's where it copied down all of the OBJs for each frame of the shape of the hair, and now is where it's applying it as a morph and turning it on and off. So that I'll show you when it's all done here. But so there's 59 OBJs that just got added, and this hair is not even close to being low polygon count. I mean, it's there's a lot of polygons in this hair, and I'm fine with that. I like all of these polygons. This hair is awesome. And here's what it looks like if you actually dig into it. Now you may have seen that I right clicked into the timeline and hit refresh. You won't see the keyframes for newly added morphs in the timeline unless you refresh. Okay. So I'm just going to collapse everything here. It's my favorite way to reset stuff, and then I can just open things up either by clicking on it or by opening the hierarchy. And we'll take a look here, and now uh, we've got this whole thing, and we've got morphs for this looping hair animation. So what I could do is multiply this looping animation out a bit. And now just like to show a little thing that sometimes happens with certain anti-blocks. The only times that I ever see it, I think, are with like Mixamo or something like that. But what'll happen is with each iteration of um, yeah, every time you add it again, it turns the whole figure, and sometimes it's an arbitrary number, but most of the time it's 45 degrees. So right here, she's 90 degrees difference because we've done the 45 degrees twice. And so instead of doing that, I'll just drag this back until it snaps back into one, and then I'll turn animate back on, and I'll bake it again, and then I'll show you another little thing that you may run across. And there again, I usually don't see this on anything except for mix ones that I bring in from Mixamo myself. But what'll happen is um, at the very beginning, you'll catch this little rotational issue. Okay, so I'll show you how I fix that. We start by clearing out my 30 frame buffer zone here by removing these 28, boom, there we go, 29 keys in there. And now these general um, keys have no purpose, so I just delete them. And now if we go to the hip, well, see, I'm going to I'm going to actually extend this. And I just wanted to show you that we can do this. And as a matter of fact, when I was doing this, I wasn't even sure if it would work or not, or how well it would work. But I just wanted to do it. So basically I got the total number of frames in the far left over here. Um, to be the same as it would be if I had three anti-blocks in there. But now if we go to the hip and we go to the rotation right there, and now what you do is you take all three of the rotation keyframes. When the rotation is collapsed like that, we take these 5 frames and remove them. It's always the first 5 after the first key of the animation, the hip animation. And yeah, that will correct that little spaz if you just remove those. If you only get 4. Okay, now this is a properties morph that it resets it back to where it was at 30. It's a breathing morph. So since I'm going to copy all of these and paste them, I don't want to have all of that redundancy in there. So we'll just copy this whole thing. Oh, before we do this, let's select the hair and let's take a look at the interpolation on all of these hair morphs. Like to get you into the practice of looking at your interpolation methods. These are TCB, that's linear, okay? And there, so because whenever you copy and paste stuff, you need to toggle um, your interpolation type, or um, you may end up having to do a hard crash of Daz Studio. So basically, what you do you go to the previous keyframe before the paste and you select it and if you want it to be TCB, you still at least change it to linear first and then toggle it back to TCB. Um, and it'll be fine. But if you don't do that, a lot of times all of a sudden um, uh, Daz Studio will read it funky, and then we got to set these back to linear too. But the Daz Studio, because of some crazy bug in the pasting method, all of a sudden I think what happens is you get these rotational values that just don't make sense to it until you toggle that back and forth. Anyway, it's a simple thing to do, and it's a horrible thing to forget to do. When you forget to do it, it's like, oh, you got to start all over again. Hopefully you saved. Okay, now we've got some redundant pose dials in here. I forgot I have hidden ones shown. Huh. Yeah. I'm just going to ignore those, but I show the hidden ones once in a while just to make sure that I can see them if I need to get rid of them. Okay, so right here is the breathing one I was talking about, and I see that there are some linear keyframes in there that I need to fix. So there we go. We got it back at TCB. Okay, and now this is just, I don't need these two. I only need the one at the very beginning. And what are these? We've got, okay, that's just what I was doing with the face and the neck. So these, I don't need these either. There we go. Okay, so now we have a clean animation, and we haven't even checked it yet. Hopefully it'll look all right. Let's see. Now I'm coming into animate here to get the faster because I purposely have my timeline set to play every frame so that I can, because I like to see every frame slower when I'm actually working on stuff. But and then I come in here, and if you want, you can always toggle back to the timeline while this is playing, and it'll retain this speed. Okay. Now, I, it works. That's all I really wanted to show is that it works. Now I'm just going to bring this back because what I really wanted to do is get the the whole savings of the ability to loop and set this render up so that I can have the render repeat and it'll still work. Okay. And spoiler alert, it does work. So now I'm just going to uh get set a dramatic camera angle for what I'm what I was working on um when all of a sudden I was able to get my hands on this dForce Arc Mage, and uh, so I had to try it while I'm in the middle of this project. I thought, well, this would be a good one. I'm just and so I'm just going to and she's looking down a dark corridor. So I really like um, photo shoot one, um, number 21, but I also like this number four from photo shoot two. I'm just trying that a little bit, but not quite getting the fantastical that look that I get from this. It gets a little more. You, I'm not going for what things look like in absolute real life. I'm going more for something that just looks cool from a cinematic aspect. So, yeah, and something like this where it's kind of a common acceptance to use like a bluish to have light yet have it represent dark. And now I set the depth of field to my of my camera that I also use on the backdrop that's going to go behind this render. And yep, get that set right around there. Looks good. Yeah, and now I have this cool little set of ghost lights that I made. I'll make more. When I make more, I add them to my little library here. But this one here that I made, um, this light flame flicker, um, is a ghost light. And see, as you change the scale of these things, you're also changing the intensity of the light that comes out of them because of the surface. And see, you get this neat flicker. It turned out pretty cool, huh? Now this is that it's now the loop of the background is a different number of frames than the loop of the character. So that's a nice testament to the fact that this works well. I mean, it. I'm certainly not catching any flags being thrown up that's a looping hair simulation. It turned out good. Yeah, and especially, I just got this thing. So here we go. dForce Arc Mage. Matthew, you rock, man. Thanks. Have a good one, guys.